One coach who's not calm is Mark McVeigh, and his comments on the weekend we're going to have a look at. Let's take you back to last week when he first showed his frustration and attempt to work his players harder, and then his reaction on the weekend.
You have a look at the list. I reckon there was probably 8 players that really went to the wall today. You know, you talk about Kelly, Whitfield, Perriman, Taylor, Ward, Hogan, Green and Kennedy. I thought all those 8 players were, fought right through to the end and tried and gave absolutely everything. But 8 players doing that's not enough. Some players spoke up that you don't often hear from, which is what we need at this club going forward. But I'm extremely disappointed with today. We embarrassed our club. I won't be letting up in my approach, and I won't be letting up in my approach to train them hard. So when a loss happens like this and last week, there's always consequences, and that can be from a selection point of view, but I'll be upping the ante in the way we train and approach the next few weeks.
That's the first one that made me concerned, and you know his intent. He's a great club person. Surely the job of the caretaker coach is part psychologist, part coach. And just
what if you tried that though? What if the first 4 weeks the shackles were off, players are in different positions, they were high scoring?
Well, it's not working. Training them hard.
It worked firstly, and then it didn't.
It did for 1 week.
Yeah,
training them hard is not.
I respect the coach who has belief in his own convictions, and he's going to live and die by that, which he clearly will. He won't get the job now after those comments.
They've had no sugar hit because of the. They're not going to fix their inadequacies in 8 weeks.
But if I was looking to hire an assistant coach, I'd be going, gee, he's strong. He's a strong leader. He knows what he wants.
He's been too hard.
Matthew, it's the worst job in footy. It works out 1 in 100 times if you're Paul Roos. I mean, Brett Ratton had obviously coached before. It is just the worst job in footy, and he's had it since round 10. So it's bloody tough. But that, to me, looked like someone who's losing control. And the contained fury, it actually taking the trouble to write down the 8 names. I've heard him say it, but I didn't realise he was reading from a script. That's a great concern, and there are a lot of young players who he didn't name, so you've disenfranchised them. I think, and I know that the hierarchy seemed to be sticking up for him. Jimmy Bartell certainly did on 3AW yesterday, but I'd be very, very concerned. And I don't think there'd be much point in him interviewing for the job now.
Well, I think that was meant to be tomorrow, wasn't it? But it's a redundant.
It's still on. It's still on. I think they have a great respect for him there. I think that
he can't win that job from here, though.
He may not win it because they're not winning enough games. So what's going on field? But I think you'll find that players these days actually want honesty, and I think we have a go at coaches who sit there and say nothing. And we hear something like that, and suddenly he cops it for that. He's telling the players exactly the same thing. We sat here and said, how good Jake Stringer, you and I are on the same page, what Ben Rutten said about Jake Stringer.
Well, that was a very different situation.
Players these
There's nothing wrong with him saying that to the players.
But players these days want to be mollycoddled.
But Matthew, by a different extension, when Damien Hardwick goes overboard in defending his player, or Alistair Clarkson in the past, and you say, you love that because you know that behind the scenes they're berating them, but they're showing family.
But on that though, Caro, the players love him, and they're not playing well, which is one thing. Which is
do they like doing push-ups on their knuckles, as I heard they were doing last week?
All I'll say is he is a great relationships coach, so he feels confident in saying what he says because he feels he has his players behind him. We'll see this week. But just on another thing Mark said, Hutchie, he said we may have to change our leadership at the end of the year and hand over to some others. And I want to take a look at the leadership group, and let's go have a look. You put them up against, say, the Geelong leaders. How's Kelly gone from a leadership perspective this year?
Fancy that. There's $3.6 million there on those three. Fancy having to say we've got the wrong leaders.
So Kelly, Canelio have been disappointing. Davis is out for the year. How's Matty de Boer going? Whitfield bitterly disappointing. Hopper's leaving the club. Haynes has had a shocking year. So that's what McVeigh's dealing with, and he's not going to say, have it nice, boys. He's going to give it a
It was a cop-out at the start to go with 3 captains. I said it at the time, make a call.
They couldn't sack Canelio as captain.
Could have. Make a hard call.
Even Toby Green, who, nudged an umpire and did something really undisciplined. I know he's a great player. Where does Alistair Clarkson fit in all of this? I know that no one at the AFL is denying that GWS bosses, they're not denying this at least, the GWS bosses haven't spoken about the prospect of ambassadorial money. Because,
that's a redundant conversation because you just pay him.
The point is made, they never approve that sort of thing until a contract is over the line anyway.
It's redundant because you just pay the 1.6 if you feel like it. You pay the tax on it, which you're allowed to do, and the AFL are underpinning the $10 million.
No coach in this environment can get 1.6 million. No, but it's irresponsible.
It's not their money though. There's a bottomless bank.
No one. The AFL would not allow it.
They're paying themselves back in the. So
it's too much money. Alistair should be. He wants to be careful not to price himself out of the market.
The list management has been inept for the best part of a decade. It is so poor, and the governance on that footy club. You can't blame Jimmy Bartell for it, but it makes no sense having a football director who's living in Melbourne and working in media in another environment. The list management.
He's a board member, Craig.
The CEO.
You're talking really about Jason McCartney and Dave Matthews.
Poor. Like you're paying.
You're surely not blaming the footy director.
I'm blaming all of them. It's been such a disappointment as a footy club, I reckon.
They've been pretty successful, though. To this point, they've been it's fallen apart now.
They've squandered an era of talent, and now they're overpaying talent to stay, and they're losing the next rung of talent to fund it. I don't understand how they got themselves in this spot. And the only way that Alistair Clarkson could go in is if he goes to those 4 players and says, I cannot win with you guys taking all of this money. So you guys take $150,000 pay cut each, and I'll think about it. But
well, I hope he doesn't then hope to get paid $1.6 million.
Or do you want to take superannuation checks for 5 years and have good careers for yourself, or do you want to win premierships?
Well, they're not the first club to overpay. Look at what West Coast have done. McGovern, Nat Nui, Gaff, Kelly. So they're not the first club.
I speak about those 5. Well, Haynes is on. I heard he's on 800 next year, back ended. The other 4 have got to make a decision. Do they want to be successful or do they want to be well paid? Because none of them are living up to their wage.
And just on this, to finish, I have real sympathy for Taranto and Hopper because they probably have checked out in a sense. They wanted to stay at the club, but because of these other contracts, they can't actually stay.
Now, it's fixable with a good coach and some sacrifice, but they've...
Where do you think he wants to coach? If he's the Giants or North Melbourne?
I think it's amazing that people are now saying North might be a better prospect than the Giants. And North are quietly confident of getting him, but no one in this environment can get 1.6 million. I think Alistair Clarkson
He's denied that, though. He's denied.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I agree with that. But I do think he needs some better people around him at either of those clubs. And I think if he had to make a choice now, it would probably be GWS.
It's impossible to win a flag with 4 players taking that much money who are the 16th or 17th ranked midfield in the competition. It defies